We are officially 3 weeks into one draft every single day. I'm gonna prefer Gibbs over Saquon here. I'm genuinely, the more I looked at the data, the more I'm concerned about Saquon not being a complete bust this season. But I do think Gibbs is on an ascension where Barkley will probably see some return to mean. The reality is that the Eagles' offense just isn't going to be as run focused as they were last year. It takes a special moment in time to achieve that. And ignoring any injury concerns, running backs that reach the level of volume that Saquon reached tend to see a decrease in points per game, even in the games that they do play. And I think people are also underrating just how good the Detroit offense is going to be again this year, at least by what the sports books see. Next pick will be 22 and then 27. Start to get a tentative plan here. This is an Eliminator. I've been doing a lot of off-stream sprints and BBMs, so I kind of wanted to just go back to the good old Eliminator. Allows me to just kind of take players, individual players that I like a lot this year, rather than getting too honed in on game stacking and team stacking like I do in the other two contests. I still really like Ladd a lot, so we can queue him up. Just spoke about how I think that the Philly offense will probably get more pass heavy, so A.J. Brown would be a fine pick as well. Green Bay offense, somewhat similar. We'll probably see a slight uptick in passing this year. I am planning on going through same thing I did last year and planning out my target predictions for each offense. Haven't gotten to that yet, but I might be doing that later tonight. At least doing the prelims on it, going through kind of the top end guys before I work through some of the lower end parts. But be on the lookout for that. Even if I don't make a video for it, I'll probably reference it and include a link on these live streams so you guys can all check it out and view my thoughts on a target wise. I think for the first season that we did it last year, we did fairly well. I believe it was like 70%, like 70 something percent across all players. Close to 80% or above 80%. I can't even remember for the more premium players. I like the three top running backs on the board. I'll be surprised if anyone takes both of them. I'm going to take Tyreek here. Get our first receiver on the board and a receiver that I like, especially in a best ball format. We'll likely be taking one of Jacobs, Brown, or Kyron at this next pick. I was going to say Higgins would be a consideration if we didn't hit him, any of the running backs, but we'll likely come away with one and be pretty damn set at running back. Have the ability to just take Caleb Johnson later as the 3. I prefer Kyron, but let's go Chase Brown. I honestly am not that high on Chase Brown, but I do think a lot of times, especially when you're doing so many drafts like I am, you do have to kind of check yourself a little bit. Obviously, Chase Brown does have the upside to be a really good running back. And I do think as humans, I'm sure there's a player that you will likely have this problem with this offseason. We can be resistant to change sometimes. My main concern with Chase Brown, especially in like a dynasty view, is that these late round running backs just come and go pretty fast. I mean, we saw it with like James Robinson. We saw it with, even though this next player did not have the kind of season that Chase Brown did last year, we saw it with, adding that comment made me, his name slipped my mind. The Texans running back that just got basically benched. Still on the team, though. Pulling out the handy depth chart to save my sorry ass right now. Dameon Pierce. Like, Dameon Pierce had a great rookie season and then just got, like, canned for the most part. So I do worry about, like, when will the next running back come in that the Bengals are just like, all right, Chase, you've had enough. Really, the only late guy in recent memory to, like, keep sustained success was Eckler. And even he got moved on eventually, close to where we perceived a peak just because of his workload. I do have this stuff down here queued up. I basically wanted to the two offenses that I think are somewhat undervalued right now are the Steelers and the Titans. Uh, you could throw New England in there too, but I think it's more so Drake May being undervalued rather than the rest of the team being undervalued. But I do think the Steelers, even if they aren't going to be fantastic from a yardage standpoint, I mean, the sports books have Rodgers close to like 12th in passing touchdowns this year. Like I think they're gonna score enough points to provide some low end value, and in the Eliminator, that's what we dream about. A nice juicy wide receiver board right now. We're at 56 and then 51. 46 and 51. I think I might do something. All right. I was gonna say if Evans is there, I have to take Evans. Xavier Worthy, another, really good consideration. As good as I think the Titans are. Oh, there you go. All right, then yeah, let's do this. Let's put my money where my mouth is. We'll see how this team does. We'll check in with it throughout the season. I was going to say, as good as I think the upside for Steelers and Titans is, the upside with Worthy is just a lot higher. Rashee Rice is a player I've loved drafting in the tournament styles, but in this one, I'm much more hesitant to take him. Devonta Smith's another great pick, but we're gonna do this so we can stack up like 3 quarterbacks later, give us a wide range of outcomes. Speaking of quarterbacks, we can start perusing what our other options would be. Honestly, let's do Tua. We'll take Tua, Cam, and Rodgers. Have a very strange amalgamation, but one that I think has a fair bit of upside ADP-wise. In terms of tight ends, Laporta's honestly pretty good. I don't want to be dependent on the Steelers' tight ends just because I expect the TD variance to be decently spread out on the offense. I think when you're trying to get bang for your buck in those final weeks, they have value, but across a season-long perspective, I worry about week-to-week value. Also, getting Gibbs and Chase Brown gives us, we don't have to take the Titans running backs, which I appreciate. I am a lot more interested in their passing upside than their rushing upside. Next 2 picks will be 70 and 75. Just realized I have the screen capture muted. Alright, music should be back now. I don't feel the need to take any of these running backs, I don't think. Even Caleb Johnson. I view Caleb Johnson as a lot better in the tournament format than this Eliminator format. Queued him up so I don't forget about him, but the point still stands. In terms of volume, Olave's a really interesting pick here. You're probably not going to see like a lot of TD upside in an offense that is probably going to struggle to move the ball, but he should get a lot of volume, even in a bad team. We could go Diggs. I just mentioned how I think Drake May is slight bit undervalued. The only problem with Diggs is early sportsbooks have his TDs at like 4.5, 5.5, I think. So I do worry about his touchdown upside. Not to say that he can't beat that, but it is a pretty good early indicator. I think we're probably just going to go Laporta. And then we'll see what's on the board at the next pick. I'm fine with taking Laporta here. It also opens us up to potentially take Goff instead of Tua. Wouldn't be bad at all. If Odunze's there, I'm really going to love that pick. At 75, I think Mixon's also worth it. This is tough. I think we go Odunze, which sucks because I think the value at 75 for Mixon is really, really good. But I think the wide receiver depth is what's a lot more pertinent. Either way, someone will get a good value on Mixon. If he were a younger running back, I'd be less scared about it and jump all over that ADP value. But, I mean, there's old running backs, you never know. There's a chance that he misses the first couple weeks, and while we do have Gibbs and Brown to keep that alive, I think if we take Mixon, he misses a couple of weeks even in the beginning of the season. That doesn't seem that bad, but it's a question of how much does that decrease our wide receiver production in those first couple weeks, especially when it's only a 1v1. You could run into a team that just happens to explode, and you need a little bit of firepower to fend them off. What are we looking at next? 94.99. We're able to take, 118 we can take Goff if he's there. If not, we have a fair amount of backups. Pittman and Kupp aren't the worst to get our 5th wide receiver on 8 or 9. I really like Jordan Mason if he's there. Warren isn't a bad RB3 just to provide a little bit of stable value. I think it'll be really interesting. I mean, thank God Cordero Patterson got cut as a Steeler fan. I mean, love Cordero Patterson. Sure, he's a great person. I don't know why we were ever giving him the ball last year. Pained me to watch. Mason is leagues above Warren, in my opinion, in best ball. Warren's much better in, like, your home league where you know he's going to get, like, low-end RB2 value. I struggle to see him really popping off with the addition of Caleb Johnson. In any given week, I think his weekly upside is kind of capped. But if we do run into a week where like Brown or Gibbs are injured for a single week, it's not the worst decision. And there's a small chance that, he does just become this weird red zone receiving threat if the Steelers happen to go that route. And knowing that I want to take Rodgers, I don't think it's a horrible pick. Godwin, I have similar concerns as I did with Chubb, but I think the value is really high if we can live through the first couple weeks with our wide receivers. Clear issue, though, is having Metcalf and Odunze both on bye week 5. Add Warren into that. So we need Godwin to be present and ready for week 5, which admittedly can be a tough thing to count on. I think he should be probably, I'm going to guess, like 80% by week 5. Reports from like some Twitter accounts that I really trust. It's like, I don't remember the guy's name, but he's some doctor and he primarily just looks at injury history data. Suggests that Godwin won't be 100% until week 8. But if he's 80% by week 5, I think that's more than enough to help us out here. Hoping we can land Goff at the next pick. 118 and 123. Kirk and Brown aren't bad. Two is 142. That does line up pretty well. How do we line up for Ward and Rodgers later? Ward is 152. So we'd have to take him at 147. We'll see what happens with Tua. And then 171 should line up well for Rodgers. All right. We're pretty in line with all the quarterbacks we're targeting. I think we can safely take Spears here into a wide receiver. Coleman, if we see a jump, could be valuable. No Goff for us, unfortunately, but we'll be good with Tua, Ward, Rodgers. I don't feel the need to take Evan Ingram here. Judkins, I'm not really going to be taking him in Eliminator. The upside in taking him in the tourney formats is like if one, he plays, and two, the suspension isn't as bad as people seem to think it is. And then you get the production in 15, 16, 17. With all the questions around him right now, I'm not going to take him in a weekly 1v1 format right now. I don't think, especially if you're going to be drafting early in your home leagues, throw a flyer out on him if you can. But otherwise, I'd temper it a little bit. Yeah, we'll go Spears here. And then one of like Coleman. Even Rashad Bateman's fine. I'd be fine with that. Granted, we're lining up a 10-10 there, but I'm not going to overthink it. If we make it to bye week 10, I'm not going to be upset. Yeah, and we'll go Coleman next. And then Tua at the next pick. Likely Tua into Ward. I believe it's the next two picks, correct? Yeah, 142 for 147. Tua into Cam Ward. Gonna need a good week out of Jalen Warren by week 10. After them, let's start looking at the values we could be pursuing. 166, 171. Jerome Ford pretty appropriately priced in this. Kind of surprised by that. I don't think he's appropriately priced in some of the BBM formats, but I guess that's because people assume he'll get phased out at some point. I think 160 is a pretty fair price for him, given the early season value you can get out of him. Wandell could be okay. We probably have to go McMillan. He's similar, in my opinion, a little bit underpriced. Gives us some value into him early, Godwin late. We definitely need a little bit more punch in our wide receiver room by week 5. So likely taking him. And then after that, we'd probably just close out with a little bit of stacking into the quarterbacks we aim to take. In terms of any running backs, I love Rachaad White. Not going to take him either because we need to go to a Ward. But one thing to note, I do love Rachaad White. I don't think people appreciate the numbers he put up. Even in a year where he got kind of put to the back end, kind of becoming the 1B, I don't think he's completely out of this offense. I still think he's going to be a 1B. It's not just going to all suddenly... The transfer of power isn't going to be immediate and apparent. I think he's still going to be quite a nuisance in terms of people who... Damn it, Tua went. Alright. Alright, fuck it. We're going to take Ray Davis. I didn't think Ray Davis would be here. He's a good goal line back with upside. How far do I kick this can down, though? Because I'm going to need another quarterback that isn't Ward and Rodgers. We probably just have to take Stafford for value. I think he's another undervalued quarterback. In Eliminator, it matters less that we don't have stacking for him. But I think he's a pretty valuable low-end QB1. Offense projects to score fairly well. Not going to overreact to the back soreness. We have a little bit of time before the season starts. We're going to have to pray that Ward falls now. Because I do think Stafford has a lot more stability than Ward. That forced our hand there. And if we do happen to miss on Ward, we can pick up some value later. Don't really want to take Sam Darnold, but if we have to, we have to. Surprised by how far White fall there. Main justification there for taking Ray Davis, even though I do think Rachaad White as well. So we still have the upside if for some reason James Cook is like, yeah, I'm not playing. Ray Davis will be a stud, in my opinion. I liked him coming out of college. I don't think he's the complete back that James Cook is, but even if he isn't, he's still going to get, with James Cook playing, he'll still take some red zone work out of his pocket. It's a premium handcuff, and we also intend to take Jalen McMillan if we can make all this work. And I really didn't want McMillan, Godwin, and Rachaad White. Diversification is your friend in this a lot more than it is in the tourney format. I say that even though I am working up like Pitt and Tennessee stacks. It's partially because I think there's some value into this, into buying into lower end, cheaper offenses that you perceive as having upside. If Cam Ward makes it to us here, that's a dream. I do worry that he might go like one pick before us to this guy with only one QB right now. Let's see who the QB is. If it's Bo Nix, we're probably not getting Cam here, which sucks, but it is what it is. I do think we have to go Ward into Rodgers, and we'll take someone else later. It's a dream, though, if Cam Ward makes it to us here. Oh, let's go. All right. In this case, I think we probably have to pass on McMillan, even though I love the early season upside for him. Take Rodgers, get our 3 quarterbacks, which will give us a ton of stability and firepower for some upside weeks out of any of them. And then we'll take like Calvin Austin and either Lockett or Eliminator early, hoping that the offenses do kick early and often for us. So yeah, we'll go Rodgers here. 3 cheap, undervalued quarterbacks in my opinion, which should be a pretty decent opportunity for success for us, especially in a format where you only need to beat one person. You kind of just want that floor at quarterback a little bit more than we want the extreme upside ceiling, and I still think that these two especially, not to dig on Stafford, I think if we had Puka, the Stafford pick would be beautiful, but I think pairing these two up at their current ADP values is pretty decent ceiling in this format while still having 3 quarterbacks for a decent floor every week. 3 picks left. Probably can survive with only 1 tight end, given Laporta. We know we're going to go probably 1 more receiver. Yeah, it's probably just 1-1-1. A running back, wide receiver, tight end to close it out. Doesn't need to be any of this stacking stuff. This was just for me to keep in mind for later in the draft. Gesicki and Roshan would be fine. Happy if either of them make it to us. Otten would be okay. Otten would provide a little bit of value in weeks that Godwin is out. I think Elijah Arroyo is pretty high upside. Yeah, if one of those two are there, I'll take them at this next pick. If both of them are gone, I'll resign myself to taking Freiermuth later. Freiermuth is another one I think is undervalued. There'll probably be a ton of 2 tight end sets in Pittsburgh this year. And the real upside out of these late tight ends is going to be TD variance week to week, not necessarily a ton of volume. Justice Hill, also a quality pick here. All right, let's go with Otten. And then we'll probably, I think it's more likely Calvin Austin falls than Justice Hill falls. And I'm not super in love with any of the running backs here in an Eliminator format. I think Hill is probably fairly above the rest of them here in terms of week-to-week floor. So I'm fine with that. Hopefully we can get Calvin Austin at the next one. Close it out with 1 receiver, a tiny bit of stacking. In terms of Lockett versus Eliminator, probably Lockett because he's going to have the role earlier in the season. I did like Eliminator a lot, but he didn't get drafted in the range that I was hoping he would. So I tempered expectations for him quite a bit. I mean, Lockett out of the slot. Also not a role that Eliminator is likely to challenge for. He'd be challenging Van Jefferson. Calvin Austin goes. It's fine. We'll live with it. Yeah, in the games Lockett played last year, he did provide a bit of value before getting pushed out. I still think he can be a decent receiver, especially working in a slot role where he doesn't need to be the burner that he occasionally was for Seattle. I still think he can give us some pretty good value. So I'm fine with Lockett with our final pick. Could also take Tutu. I think I prefer Tutu to Eliminator. Give us a little bit of work there for Stafford. And Tutu is one of my favorite late end wide receivers. I mean, we've seen the value that like Demarcus Robinson provided last year, being the 3. Granted, we saw some injuries in LA to promote that, but even without it, like the LA offense can provide value for the fringe depth pieces, which is a perfect thing to target in BestBall, and I think Tutu lines up really well for that this year. So we honestly, I could go Tutu over Lockett. Let's consider this. Admittedly a better offense. Similar roles, younger player. And we don't work into bye week 8 right now. I'm going to take Tutu. I'd be surprised if he loses the job to Whittington. I think he'll have it. Granted, Lockett does provide, a safer bet in that case, where Lockett should have the starting role. I don't even know. Yeah, $1 million, $4 million dealer isn't like the best, but I think he's a little bit more stable. Regardless, pretty happy with how this team panned out. Pretty content with the wide receiver room. I think we have a really solid running back room. A good rotation of quarterbacks to work in and out. And Laporta's, I think, a very good value throughout most of the drafts. Likely won't be doing an Eliminator tomorrow. We'll get back to the tourney style format. But appreciate everyone who popped out today. I'll be back tomorrow. Officially hit 3 weeks today. We got a lot more to go before the season starts, so appreciate everyone who's popped out for any of the drafts up until this point. Appreciate you. Have a good one. Peace.